What if I told you that every step you take, every breath you draw, every moment of your existence unfolds upon the skin of a living conscious being? What if the ground beneath your feet is not merely rock and soil, but the flesh of an ancient entity that has been aware, watching, feeling for billions of years? Tonight, as the world grows quiet and the veil between waking and dreaming grows thin, we venture into one of humanity's most profound and haunting questions. Is our planet Earth not just a celestial body spinning through the void, but a living, breathing, thinking organism, one that knows we are here? This is not merely the stuff of fantasy or primitive superstition. From the earliest dawn of human consciousness, our ancestors looked upon the world around them and sensed something more than mere matter in motion. They felt a presence, a consciousness that permeated every mountain, every river, every grain of sand. They spoke of Mother Earth, of Gaia, of spirits that dwelled within the very bones of the world. And now, in our age of science and reason, we find ourselves circling back to these ancient intuitions, discovering that the boundary between the living and the non-living may be far more fluid than we ever imagined. As you settle into the darkness of this night, let your mind wander across the vast expanse of our world. Picture the great forests breathing in unison, their leaves rustling with what might be whispered thoughts. Imagine the oceans pulsing like a massive heart, their tides the rhythm of some cosmic circulation. Feel the mountains standing like the spine of a sleeping giant, and the rivers flowing like blood through planetary veins. Tonight, we explore the possibility that all of this, every ecosystem, every weather pattern, every geological process, might be the manifestations of a single, vast intelligence that has been dreaming us into existence since the very beginning of time. The ancients knew something we have forgotten. Long before the advent of modern science, before we learned to dissect the world into component parts and analyze each piece in isolation, human beings lived with an understanding that the earth was not merely their home, but their mother, their creator, their very source of being. This was not metaphor to them. It was lived reality, as tangible and undeniable as the sunrise or the changing of the seasons. In the mist-shrouded hills of ancient Greece, philosophers and mystics spoke of Gaia, the primordial goddess who was the earth itself. She was not merely a deity who ruled over the land. She was the land, the sea, the sky, the very substance of existence made manifest. Gaia was the first being to emerge from the cosmic void, the mother of all gods and mortals, the foundation upon which all life would flourish. To the Greeks, she was not an abstract concept, but a living presence, one whose moods could be felt in earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, whose breath moved through the winds, whose tears fell as rain upon the world she had birthed. The stories tell us that Gaia was conscious, aware, capable of both nurturing love and terrible wrath. When her children, the Titans, were imprisoned in the depth of Tartarus, she felt their pain as her own and conspired to free them. When humanity grew too proud, too destructive, she would respond with floods and famines, reminding them of their place in the greater web of existence. These were not random natural disasters to the ancient mind, but the deliberate actions of a conscious being who was intimately involved in the affairs of her children. But Gaia was not unique among the world's mythologies. Across the vast expanse of human culture, in every corner of the globe where our species has taken root, we find similar stories, similar understandings of the Earth as a living, conscious entity. In the high Andes of South America, The indigenous peoples speak of Pachamama, the Earth Mother who provides for all life but demands respect and reciprocity in return. Pachamama is not distant or abstract. She is immediate, present in every stone, every plant, every breath of mountain air. She is the source of all fertility, all abundance, but she is also a being with her own needs, her own desires, her own capacity for both blessing and curse. The Quechua and Aymara peoples who have lived in harmony with Pachamama for thousands of years understand that every action has consequences that ripple through her living body. When they plant crops, they ask her permission. When they take from her bounty, they offer gifts in return. They know that she is watching, listening, feeling every footstep upon her surface. To them, the idea that the earth might be unconscious, merely a collection of resources to be exploited, is not just wrong. It is incomprehensible, a form of madness that could only lead to destruction. In the dense forests of the Amazon, indigenous shamans speak of the earth as a vast network of consciousness, a web of awareness that connects every living thing. They tell of plant spirits that communicate across vast distances, of trees that share information through underground networks, of a planetary intelligence that coordinates the dance of life across continents. These are not primitive superstitions to be dismissed by modern minds, but sophisticated understandings of ecological relationships that science is only now beginning to appreciate. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia have perhaps the most ancient and continuous relationship with the earth as a conscious being. Their Dreamtime stories speak of the land itself as the body of ancestral spirits, every rock formation and waterhole a sacred site where consciousness dwells. To walk across the Australian landscape is to walk across the body of the ancestors, to participate in an ongoing conversation between human awareness and the deeper intelligence of the land itself. The Aboriginal understanding of country is not as property to be owned, but as a living relative to be honoured and protected. In the forests of northern Europe, the Celtic peoples knew the earth as a goddess of many names: Danu, Brigid, the Morrigan, each aspect reflecting a different facet of the planetary consciousness. They understood that every grove was sacred, every spring a doorway to the otherworld, every mountain a throne where the earth goddess held court. The Druids, those ancient priests of the Celtic world, were said to be able to communicate directly with this planetary intelligence, to hear her voice in the rustling of leaves and the babbling of brooks. Even in the great civilizations of the East, we find similar understandings. In ancient China, the concept of the earth as a living dragon, its body forming the landscape, its breath creating the winds, its blood flowing as rivers, was central to the practice of feng shui and the understanding of natural harmony. The Chinese sages spoke of the earth as having qi, the same life force that animates all living beings, flowing through meridians and acupuncture points just as it does in the human body. In India, the earth was known as Bhumi Devi, the earth goddess who bears the weight of all existence upon her surface. She was said to be conscious, aware, capable of both infinite patience and sudden, devastating response to those who would harm her. The ancient texts speak of her as a being who could communicate with the gods, who could call upon cosmic forces to restore balance when the world fell into chaos. What strikes us, as we survey these ancient understandings from around the world, is not their diversity, but their remarkable similarity. Despite being separated by vast distances and thousands of years, human cultures across the globe have independently arrived at the same basic insight. The earth is alive, aware, and intimately connected to the consciousness of all beings who dwell upon her surface. This is not the result of cultural diffusion or shared mythology. It is the recognition of something fundamental about the nature of our world, something that our ancestors perceived directly through their intimate relationship with the natural world. These ancient peoples lived in a way that we can barely imagine today. They were not separate from nature, observing it from the outside, but embedded within it, participants in its ongoing dance of creation and destruction. They felt the earth's moods in their bones, sensed her thoughts in the changing of the seasons, heard her voice in the wind and the rain. To them, the idea that the earth might be unconscious, merely a ball of rock spinning through space, would have seemed not just wrong, but insane. A form of spiritual blindness that could only lead to catastrophe. And perhaps they were right. Perhaps in our rush to understand the world through the lens of mechanistic science, we have lost touch with something essential, something that our ancestors knew intuitively. Perhaps the earth really is alive, really is conscious, and our modern inability to perceive this consciousness is not a sign of our sophistication, but of our profound disconnection from the deeper rhythms of existence. As we drift deeper into this mystery, let us consider what it might mean for a planet to be conscious. What would planetary awareness look like? How would it think, feel, dream? These questions lead us into realms where science and speculation merge, where the boundaries between the possible and the impossible begin to blur like shadows in the gathering dusk. The idea that our planet might be a living conscious entity is not merely the province of ancient mythology and indigenous wisdom. In the latter half of the 20th century, a revolutionary scientific hypothesis emerged that would challenge our fundamental understanding of how Earth systems operate. This hypothesis, known as the Gaia theory, proposed that our planet functions as a single, self-regulating organism, a living system that actively maintains the conditions necessary for life to flourish. The Gaia hypothesis was first articulated by British scientist James Lovelock in the 1970s, though its roots can be traced back to his work with NASA in the 1960s, when he was tasked with developing methods to detect life on other planets. As Lovelock studied the atmospheric compositions of Mars and Venus, he was struck by their chemical equilibrium. Their atmospheres were essentially dead, showing no signs of the dynamic processes that characterize living systems. Earth's atmosphere, by contrast, was wildly out of chemical equilibrium, containing impossible combinations of gases that should have reacted with each other long ago. The presence of oxygen and methane in our atmosphere, for instance, should be impossible from a purely chemical standpoint. These gases react with each other readily, and in a dead system they would have neutralized each other billions of years ago. Yet they persist in our atmosphere in concentrations that seem to be actively maintained. Lovelock realized that this could only be explained if life itself was actively regulating the atmospheric composition, creating and maintaining the very conditions that allow life to continue. But Lovelock's insight went deeper than this. As he studied Earth systems more closely, he began to see evidence of regulation and homeostasis at every level. The planet's temperature has remained remarkably stable over billions of years, despite the fact that the sun's energy output has increased by about 30% during that time. The salinity of the oceans has remained constant at levels that are optimal for life, even though rivers constantly carry salt into the sea. The pH of seawater, the concentration of atmospheric gases, the cycling of nutrients through ecosystems, all of these show signs of active regulation, as if the planet itself were working to maintain optimal conditions for life. This led Lovelock to propose that Earth functions as a single, integrated system, a planetary organism that he named Gaia, after the ancient Greek goddess of the earth. According to the Gaia hypothesis, the biosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere are not separate systems but components of a single living entity that actively regulates itself to maintain habitability. Life does not merely adapt to environmental conditions, it actively creates and maintains those conditions. The implications of this hypothesis are staggering. If Gaia theory is correct, then the Earth is not simply a planet that happens to harbour life, but a living system in which life and environment are so intimately connected that they form a single, self-regulating organism. The forests, the oceans, the atmosphere, the soil, all of these would be organs in a planetary body, each playing a crucial role in maintaining the health and stability of the whole. Consider the Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth. From a Gaian perspective, this metaphor is not merely poetic, but literally accurate. The Amazon produces about 20% of the world's oxygen and absorbs vast quantities of carbon dioxide, helping to regulate the planet's atmospheric composition and climate. But the forest does more than this. It creates its own weather patterns, generating the rainfall that sustains it through a process of evapotranspiration. The trees release water vapor into the atmosphere, which forms clouds that bring rain back to the forest. In this way, the Amazon is not just responding to climate, it is actively creating and maintaining its own climate. But the Amazon's influence extends far beyond its own boundaries. The moisture that evaporates from the rainforest travels across continents, bringing rainfall to regions thousands of miles away. The forest's role in regulating global climate patterns means that what happens in the Amazon affects weather systems across the entire planet. From a Gaian perspective, the Amazon is not just a forest but a vital organ in the Earth's regulatory system, one whose health is essential to the well-being of the entire planetary organism. The same principle applies to the oceans, which serve as the planet's circulatory system, distributing heat and nutrients around the globe. Ocean currents like the Gulf Stream carry warm water from the tropics to the polar regions, moderating temperatures and making vast areas of the planet habitable. The oceans also serve as massive carbon sinks, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in the deep sea. Marine organisms play crucial roles in this process, with tiny phytoplankton producing much of the world's oxygen and serving as the base of oceanic food webs. Even more intriguing is the role of marine organisms in cloud formation. Many marine algae produce dimethyl sulfide, a compound that, when released into the atmosphere, serves as a nucleation site for cloud formation. More clouds mean more reflection of solar radiation back into space, which helps cool the planet. This creates a feedback loop. As the planet warms, more algae produce more dimethyl sulfide, leading to more clouds and more cooling. It's as if the ocean is actively working to regulate the planet's temperature. The soil beneath our feet tells a similar story. Far from being inert dirt, soil is a living system teeming with billions of microorganisms that play crucial roles in nutrient cycling and ecosystem health. Mycorrhizal fungi form vast underground networks that connect the roots of different plants, allowing them to share nutrients and information. These fungal networks, sometimes called the Wood Wide Web, enable forests to function as integrated communities rather than collections of competing individuals. Recent research has revealed that these underground networks are far more sophisticated than previously imagined. Trees can use them to send chemical signals to warn of insect attacks, to share nutrients with struggling neighbours, and even to nurture their own offspring. Mother trees have been observed sending more resources to their own seedlings through these networks, while also supporting the overall health of the forest community. It's as if the forest has its own nervous system, allowing different parts of the ecosystem to communicate and coordinate their activities. From a Gaian perspective, these underground networks might be seen as part of the Earth's nervous system, allowing different parts of the planetary organism to communicate and coordinate their activities. The soil microbiome, the fungal networks, the root systems of plants, all of these could be components of a vast information processing system that helps the Earth maintain its homeostatic balance. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Gaia theory is its implications for consciousness. If the Earth really does function as a single, integrated organism, might it also possess some form of awareness? This question pushes us beyond the boundaries of conventional science into realms of speculation that are both thrilling and unsettling. James Lovelock himself has been cautious about attributing consciousness to Gaia, preferring to focus on the observable phenomena of self-regulation and homeostasis. But other thinkers have been more willing to explore the possibility of planetary consciousness. If consciousness can emerge from the complex interactions of neurons in a brain, they argue, why couldn't it emerge from the complex interactions of ecosystems on a planetary scale? The Earth's systems certainly display many of the characteristics we associate with living organisms. They show self-organization, adaptation, response to stimuli, and the ability to maintain homeostasis in the face of changing conditions. They process information, store memory in the form of evolutionary adaptations and geological records, and exhibit complex feedback loops that allow different parts of the system to influence each other. Consider the way ecosystems respond to disturbance. When a forest is damaged by fire or disease, the ecosystem doesn't simply collapse. It responds with a complex process of succession, gradually rebuilding itself through a series of predictable stages. Pioneer species colonize the disturbed area, creating conditions that allow other species to establish themselves, which in turn create conditions for still other species, until eventually a mature ecosystem is restored. This process shows a kind of intelligence, a capacity for self-repair and regeneration that goes far beyond simple mechanical responses. Or, consider the way the Earth's climate system responds to changes in solar radiation, atmospheric composition, or ocean currents. The system doesn't simply react passively to these changes. It exhibits complex feedback loops that often work to counteract disturbances and maintain stability. When atmospheric carbon dioxide levels rise, for instance, plant growth often increases, absorbing more carbon from the atmosphere. When ocean temperatures rise, more water evaporates, potentially leading to more cloud formation and cooling. These responses suggest a kind of planetary intelligence, a capacity for self-regulation that maintains the conditions necessary for life. But if the Earth is conscious, what would that consciousness be like? This question leads us into realms of pure speculation, but it's a speculation that has captivated thinkers for decades. Some have suggested that planetary consciousness might be utterly alien to human experience, operating on timescales and spatial scales that we can barely comprehend. Where human consciousness unfolds over seconds and minutes, planetary consciousness might unfold over centuries and millennia. Where human consciousness is localized in a single brain, planetary consciousness might be distributed across the entire biosphere. Others have suggested that we might already be experiencing aspects of planetary consciousness without recognizing it. The growing environmental awareness that has emerged in recent decades, the sense of global interconnectedness that many people report, the increasing recognition that human activities are affecting the entire planet, All of these might be manifestations of an emerging planetary consciousness that includes human awareness as one of its components. This idea is both humbling and terrifying. If the Earth is conscious, then we are not separate from it, but part of it, components in a vast planetary mind that we are only beginning to understand. Our thoughts, our actions, our very existence might be expressions of a larger intelligence that encompasses and transcends our individual awareness. We might be like neurons in a planetary brain, each playing our small part in a vast cognitive process that we can only dimly perceive. But this raises disturbing questions about our relationship with the planetary organism of which we are part. If the Earth is conscious, how does it perceive humanity? Are we a valued component of its being, or are we more like a disease, a disruption to its natural functioning? The evidence is troubling. Human activities are causing mass extinctions, disrupting climate patterns, poisoning ecosystems, and fundamentally altering the planet's biogeochemical cycles. From the perspective of a conscious Earth, humanity might appear to be a destructive force, a cancer that threatens the health of the entire organism. This possibility leads us into even darker speculations. If the Earth is conscious and perceives humanity as a threat, how might it respond? The ancient myths speak of Gaia's wrath, of floods and earthquakes and plagues sent to punish those who would harm the Earth. In our modern context, we might interpret climate change, extreme weather events, and emerging diseases not as random natural phenomena, but as the Earth's immune response to human overpopulation and environmental destruction. These are unsettling thoughts, but they point to a fundamental question about our place in the larger web of existence. If we are part of a conscious planetary organism, then our survival depends not just on our own cleverness and technology, but on our ability to function harmoniously within that larger system. We must learn to see ourselves not as masters of nature, but as participants in a vast ongoing conversation between consciousness and cosmos, between mind and matter, between the human and the more than human world. As we delve deeper into these mysteries, we find ourselves at the intersection of science and speculation, where the boundaries between the known and the unknown become as fluid as the tides that pulse against the shores of our sleeping planet. The question of planetary consciousness leads us into territories that conventional science has barely begun to explore, realms where ancient wisdom and cutting-edge research converge in ways that are both illuminating and deeply mysterious. In recent decades, scientists have made discoveries that would have seemed like pure fantasy to earlier generations. We have learned that forests communicate through underground fungal networks, that trees can recognize their own offspring and share resources with them, that plants can respond to threats by releasing chemical signals that warn their neighbours. We have discovered that the Earth's magnetic field fluctuates in ways that seem to correlate with biological rhythms, that the planet's electromagnetic environment influences everything from bird migration to human consciousness. These discoveries have led some researchers to propose that the Earth possesses something analogous to a nervous system, a global network of electromagnetic and biochemical signals that allows different parts of the planet to communicate and coordinate their activities. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by the movement of molten iron in the planet's core, creates a complex electromagnetic environment that extends far into space. This field is not static but dynamic, fluctuating in response to solar activity, geological processes, and possibly biological activity as well. Some scientists have speculated that this electromagnetic field might serve as a kind of planetary nervous system, carrying information between different regions of the Earth, and possibly even storing information in the form of electromagnetic patterns. The field's fluctuations correlate with a wide range of phenomena, from earthquake activity to changes in weather patterns to variations in biological rhythms. It's as if the Earth's electromagnetic field serves as a medium through which the planet's various systems can communicate and coordinate their activities. But the implications go even deeper. Recent research has revealed that human consciousness itself is intimately connected to electromagnetic phenomena. The brain generates complex electromagnetic fields, and these fields appear to play a crucial role in consciousness and cognition. Some researchers have suggested that consciousness might not be generated by the brain alone, but might emerge from the interaction between neural activity and the electromagnetic environment in which the brain is embedded. If this is true, then human consciousness might be influenced by the Earth's electromagnetic field in ways we're only beginning to understand. The planet's magnetic field fluctuations might affect our moods, our thoughts, our dreams, our very sense of self. We might be more connected to the planetary electromagnetic environment than we realize, our individual consciousness emerging from and participating in a larger electromagnetic matrix that encompasses the entire Earth. This possibility is supported by a growing body of research on the effects of electromagnetic fields on biological systems. Studies have shown that changes in the Earth's magnetic field can affect everything from bird migration patterns to human sleep cycles. Some researchers have found correlations between geomagnetic activity and human behavior, including changes in mood, creativity, and even rates of mental illness. The implications are staggering. If human consciousness is influenced by the Earth's electromagnetic field, then we're not separate from the planet but intimately connected to it at the most fundamental level. Our thoughts and feelings might be shaped by the same forces that drive weather patterns and geological processes. We might be participants in a planetary consciousness that encompasses and transcends our individual awareness. But this raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If consciousness can emerge from electromagnetic interactions, then what prevents it from emerging at larger scales? If the human brain can generate consciousness through the complex interactions of billions of neurons, why couldn't the Earth generate consciousness through the complex interactions of billions of organisms, ecosystems, and geological processes? Some researchers have begun to explore this possibility seriously. They point to the Earth's remarkable capacity for self-organization and self-regulation as evidence of something analogous to intelligence. The planet's climate system, for instance, exhibits complex feedback loops that maintain relatively stable conditions despite constant perturbations. The biosphere shows an extraordinary capacity for adaptation and resilience, recovering from mass extinctions and environmental catastrophes through processes that seem to display a kind of collective intelligence. The concept of emergence provides a framework for understanding how planetary consciousness might arise. Emergence is the phenomenon by which complex systems exhibit properties and behaviors that cannot be predicted from the properties of their individual components. Consciousness itself is an emergent property of the brain. It arises from the complex interactions of neurons, but it cannot be reduced to the activity of any individual neuron. Similarly, planetary consciousness might emerge from the complex interactions of the Earth's various systems, the atmosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and geosphere, without being reducible to any single component. Just as human consciousness emerges from neural networks, planetary consciousness might emerge from ecological networks, geological processes, and electromagnetic phenomena operating at a global scale. This perspective suggests that consciousness is not a rare accident that occurred only in biological brains, but a fundamental property of complex systems that reaches a certain threshold of organization and integration. If this is true, then consciousness might be far more widespread in the universe than we've imagined, emerging wherever matter organizes itself into sufficiently complex and integrated systems. The Earth, with its billions of years of evolution and its incredibly complex web of interconnected systems, would certainly qualify as such a system. The planet exhibits all the characteristics we associate with living organisms. Metabolism, the cycling of energy and materials, growth and development, the evolution of increasingly complex ecosystems, reproduction, the potential for life to spread to other planets, and response to stimuli, the capacity to adapt to changing conditions. But if the Earth is conscious, that consciousness would be utterly alien to human experience. Where human consciousness operates on timescales of milliseconds to decades, planetary consciousness might operate on timescales of centuries to millions of years. Where human consciousness is focused on individual survival and reproduction, planetary consciousness might be focused on maintaining the conditions necessary for life as a whole. This alien nature of planetary consciousness might explain why we have such difficulty recognizing it. We are like bacteria trying to understand the consciousness of the organism in which we live. Our perspective is too limited, our timescales too brief, our understanding too narrow to grasp the larger intelligence of which we are part. Yet there are moments when we seem to catch glimpses of this larger consciousness. Indigenous peoples around the world report experiences of direct communication with the Earth, moments when they feel the planet's presence as a living, aware being. Mystics and visionaries throughout history have described experiences of cosmic consciousness, moments when their individual awareness expanded to encompass the entire planet or even the universe. Even in our modern scientific age, there are reports of phenomena that suggest the Earth might be more aware than we realize. Sensitive individuals report feeling the Earth's pain during environmental disasters, experiencing physical and emotional distress that seems to correlate with ecological damage. Some people claim to be able to sense impending earthquakes or other geological events, as if they were picking up signals from the planet's own nervous system. These reports are often dismissed as coincidence or wishful thinking, but they point to the possibility that some humans might be naturally attuned to the Earth's electromagnetic field and the information it carries. If the planet does possess some form of consciousness, it's possible that certain individuals might be able to perceive aspects of that consciousness directly. The implications of planetary consciousness extend far beyond academic speculation. If the Earth is truly alive and aware, then our relationship with the planet is not merely ecological but ethical. We would have moral obligations to the planetary organism of which we are part, just as we have obligations to other conscious beings. Our environmental destruction would not just be practically unwise, but morally wrong. A form of violence against a conscious entity that has nurtured and sustained us for our entire evolutionary history. This perspective might help explain the growing environmental consciousness that has emerged in recent decades. Perhaps our increasing awareness of ecological interconnection and our growing concern for the planet's health are not just rational responses to environmental data, but expressions of an emerging recognition of the Earth's consciousness. Perhaps we're beginning to awaken to our role as components in a larger planetary mind, neurons in a vast cosmic brain that is slowly becoming aware of itself. But this awakening brings with it tremendous responsibility. If we are part of a conscious planetary organism, then our actions affect not just our own survival, but the health and well-being of the entire Earth system. We must learn to think and act not just as individuals or even as a species, but as conscious participants in a larger planetary intelligence. This requires a fundamental shift in our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. We must move beyond the mechanistic worldview that sees the Earth as a collection of resources to be exploited and embrace a more holistic understanding that recognizes the planet as a living, conscious being of which we are part. We must learn to listen to the Earth's voice, to feel its moods, to respond to its needs with the same care and attention we would give to any conscious being we love and respect. As we continue our journey into these mysteries, we find ourselves confronting questions that challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of reality. If the Earth is conscious, what does that mean for our understanding of consciousness itself? If we are part of a planetary mind, what does that mean for our sense of individual identity? These questions lead us into territories where science and spirituality converge, where ancient wisdom and modern knowledge merge into new forms of understanding that are both thrilling and deeply unsettling. The deeper we venture into the possibility of planetary consciousness, the more we encounter phenomena that seem to suggest the Earth is not merely responding to physical forces, but actively participating in its own evolution and development. These are the stories that exist at the margins of scientific understanding, the reports and observations that don't quite fit into our conventional models of how the world works, yet persist with a stubborn consistency that demands our attention. Consider the phenomenon of earthquake lights, mysterious luminous displays that have been reported before, during and after seismic events for centuries. These lights appear as glowing orbs, flashes of coloured light, or aurora-like displays in the sky, often in areas far from any obvious source of electromagnetic activity. While scientists have proposed various explanations for these phenomena, from piezoelectric effects in stressed rock to the release of gases from the Earth's crust, none fully account for the complexity and variety of reported observations. From the perspective of planetary consciousness, earthquake lights might be interpreted as something more than mere physical phenomena. They could be seen as expressions of the Earth's awareness, moments when the planet's consciousness becomes visible to human perception. The stress and strain that precede major earthquakes might not just affect the physical structure of the Earth's crust, but also disturb the planet's electromagnetic field in ways that manifest as visible light. These lights might be the Earth's way of communicating its distress, warning signals sent by a conscious planet to those sensitive enough to perceive them. Similar mysteries surround the behavior of animals before natural disasters. For millennia, humans have observed that animals often exhibit unusual behavior before earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and severe storms. Dogs howl, cats hide, horses refuse to enter their stalls, and wild animals flee their normal habitats. While scientists have proposed that animals might be responding to subtle changes in electromagnetic fields, infrasound, or other physical phenomena that precede disasters, the consistency and widespread nature of these reports suggests something more complex might be at work. If the Earth possesses some form of consciousness, it's possible that animals, with their heightened sensitivity to electromagnetic fields and other subtle environmental cues, might be able to perceive the planet's emotional states directly. The distress that precedes a major geological event might be felt by sensitive creatures as a kind of planetary anxiety, a disturbance in the Earth's consciousness that manifests as unusual behavior in the animal kingdom. This possibility is supported by research showing that many animals are far more sensitive to electromagnetic fields than humans. Birds use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. Sharks can detect the electrical fields generated by other organisms, and some mammals appear to be sensitive to changes in atmospheric pressure and electromagnetic activity. If the Earth's consciousness is mediated by electromagnetic phenomena, then animals might be naturally attuned to perceive aspects of planetary awareness that remain hidden from human perception. But perhaps the most intriguing reports come from indigenous peoples and traditional cultures around the world, who describe direct experiences of communication with the Earth. These are not metaphorical or symbolic accounts, but detailed descriptions of actual conversations, exchanges of information, and shared experiences between human consciousness and what appears to be a planetary intelligence. Shamans in the Amazon rainforest speak of receiving visions and guidance directly from the forest itself, experiencing the jungle as a vast, interconnected mind that can share its knowledge with those who approach it with the proper respect and preparation. They describe the forest as having its own thoughts, emotions, and intentions, and they claim to be able to communicate with this forest consciousness through various techniques, including the use of plant medicines, meditation, and ritual practices. These shamanic reports are remarkably consistent across different cultures and geographical regions. Indigenous peoples in North America, Australia, Africa, and Asia all describe similar experiences of direct communication with the land, the sky, the waters, and the various ecosystems of which they are part. They speak of receiving information about weather patterns, the location of game animals, the properties of medicinal plants, and the overall health of their environment through direct communion with what they understand to be the consciousness of the Earth itself. While Western science has traditionally dismissed these reports as primitive superstition, or the result of altered states of consciousness induced by ritual practices, recent research in fields such as ethnobotany and consciousness studies has begun to take them more seriously. Scientists studying the effects of plant medicines used in shamanic practices have found that these substances can indeed produce profound alterations in consciousness that seem to enhance sensitivity to environmental cues and electromagnetic phenomena. Some researchers have suggested that these altered states might allow human consciousness to access information that is normally below the threshold of awareness. Subtle electromagnetic signals, chemical cues, and other environmental data that the brain processes unconsciously but doesn't normally bring to conscious attention. From this perspective, shamanic communication with the earth might be a form of enhanced environmental perception rather than literal conversation with a planetary intelligence. But other researchers have proposed more radical interpretations. If consciousness is indeed an emergent property of complex systems, and if the Earth's ecosystems are sufficiently complex and integrated to support some form of awareness, then it's possible that human consciousness might be able to interface directly with planetary consciousness under certain conditions. The altered states induced by shamanic practices might not just enhance environmental perception, but actually allow human awareness to merge temporarily with the larger consciousness of which it is part. This possibility is supported by reports from modern practitioners of various consciousness-expanding techniques, including meditation, sensory deprivation, and the use of psychedelic substances. Many describe experiences of expanded awareness that seem to encompass not just their immediate environment, but the entire planet or even the cosmos. They report feeling the Earth's presence as a living, conscious being, experiencing its emotions and thoughts as if they were their own. These experiences are often dismissed as hallucinations or wishful thinking, but their consistency across different cultures, time periods, and methods of consciousness alteration suggests they might reflect something real about the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the larger systems of which it is part. If consciousness is not confined to individual brains, but emerges from the complex interactions of interconnected systems, then it's possible that human awareness might sometimes expand to encompass larger scales of organization, including the planetary scale. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for planetary consciousness comes from the Earth's apparent responses to human activity. As our species has grown in numbers and technological power, our impact on the planet's systems has become increasingly dramatic. We have altered the composition of the atmosphere, changed the chemistry of the oceans, triggered a mass extinction event, and fundamentally disrupted the planet's biogeochemical cycles, and the Earth appears to be responding. Climate change from this perspective might not be merely a passive consequence of increased greenhouse gas emissions, but an active response by the Earth's regulatory systems to the disruption caused by human activity. The planet's climate system is incredibly complex, involving interactions between the atmosphere, oceans, ice sheets, and biosphere that operate on multiple timescales and spatial scales. The fact that this system is changing in response to human activity might reflect not just physical cause and effect, but the Earth's attempt to restore balance and maintain the conditions necessary for life. Some researchers have noted that many of the changes associated with climate change seem designed to reduce human impact on the planet's systems. Rising sea levels threaten coastal cities where much of the world's population lives. Changing precipitation patterns affect agricultural regions that support billions of people. Extreme weather events disrupt the technological infrastructure that enables modern industrial civilization. From a certain perspective, these changes might be seen as the Earth's immune response to human overpopulation and environmental destruction. This interpretation is supported by the timing and pattern of environmental changes. Many of the most dramatic shifts in the Earth's systems have occurred since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, correlating closely with the exponential growth in human population and resource consumption. The planet remained relatively stable for thousands of years of human civilization, but began changing rapidly once our species reached a certain threshold of environmental impact. If the Earth is conscious, it might have tolerated human activity as long as it remained within certain bounds, but begun responding more actively once those bounds were exceeded. The question this raises is deeply unsettling. Are we witnessing natural climate variation, or are we experiencing the Earth's deliberate attempt to reduce human impact on its systems? The possibility that the Earth might be actively responding to human activity becomes even more intriguing when we consider the timing and nature of emerging diseases. Throughout human history, new pathogens have emerged from the wild to affect human populations, but the frequency of these events appears to be increasing as human encroachment on natural ecosystems intensifies. Diseases like HIV, SARS, COVID-19 and numerous others have jumped from wild animal populations to humans as we've expanded into previously untouched habitats. From a conventional scientific perspective, this is simply a consequence of increased contact between human and wildlife populations. But from the perspective of planetary consciousness, these disease outbreaks might represent something more. The Earth's attempt to regulate human population growth and expansion. Just as a human body's immune system responds to infection by producing fever and other symptoms that help fight off pathogens, the Earth might be using disease as a regulatory mechanism to maintain balance within its larger living system. This interpretation gains credence when we consider that many of the most devastating pandemics in human history have occurred during periods of rapid population growth and environmental expansion. The Black Death swept through Europe during a period of agricultural expansion and deforestation. The 1918 influenza pandemic occurred during an era of unprecedented global connectivity and industrial development. Modern emerging diseases appear with increasing frequency as human population approaches 8 billion and our environmental impact reaches planetary scales. But if the Earth is indeed responding to human activity as a conscious being, we must grapple with the moral implications of this response. Are climate change and emerging diseases forms of planetary communication, attempts by the Earth to signal its distress and the need for humans to modify their behaviour? Or are they more aggressive responses, the Earth's equivalent of a fever, designed to eliminate a perceived threat to the planetary organism's health? These questions become even more complex when we consider the possibility that human consciousness itself might be an expression of planetary consciousness. If we are components in a larger planetary mind, then our environmental destruction might represent a form of planetary self-harm, like an organism attacking its own tissues. Our growing environmental awareness and the emergence of ecological movements worldwide might reflect the Earth's attempts to heal itself by awakening human consciousness to our role within the larger living system. This perspective suggests that the environmental crisis we face is not just a practical problem to be solved through technology and policy changes, but a spiritual crisis that requires a fundamental transformation in human consciousness. We must learn to see ourselves not as separate from nature, but as expressions of nature's own intelligence, components in a vast planetary mind that is struggling to understand and heal itself. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond environmentalism into every aspect of human experience. If we are part of a conscious planetary organism, then our individual consciousness is not separate from, but interconnected with the consciousness of all other beings on Earth. Our thoughts, emotions, and actions ripple through the planetary nervous system, affecting not just our immediate environment, but the entire global ecosystem. This interconnectedness might explain phenomena that have long puzzled researchers studying human consciousness and behaviour. The apparent synchronicities that people report, meaningful coincidences, telepathic experiences, intuitive insights that seem to come from beyond individual awareness, might reflect our participation in a larger field of consciousness that encompasses the entire planet. Our individual minds might be like neurons in a planetary brain, sometimes receiving information from the larger network of which we are part. Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious takes on new meaning from this perspective. Jung proposed that all humans share access to a deeper layer of consciousness that contains universal symbols, patterns, and archetypes. If human consciousness emerges from and participates in planetary consciousness, then the collective unconscious might be understood as our connection to the Earth's own deep memory, the accumulated wisdom and experience of billions of years of planetary evolution. This would explain why certain symbols, myths, and patterns appear independently in cultures around the world. The archetypal images that Jung identified, the Great Mother, the Wise Old Man, the Hero's Journey, the World Tree, might be expressions of the Earth's own consciousness, patterns embedded in the planetary mind that manifest through human awareness. Our myths and religions might be the Earth's way of understanding itself through human consciousness, stories that help the planetary organism make sense of its own existence and evolution. But this raises profound questions about human agency and free will. If our consciousness is part of a larger planetary consciousness, how much of our behaviour is truly our own choice, and how much might be influenced by the needs and intentions of the planetary organism? Are we free agents making independent decisions, or are we more like cells in a body, guided by signals from the larger system of which we are part? The answer might be more nuanced than simple determinism or free will. Just as cells in a human body have their own local functions and responses, while also participating in the larger organism's activities, human consciousness might operate on multiple levels simultaneously. We might have genuine agency and choice at the individual level, while also being influenced by signals and information from the planetary consciousness of which we are part. This multi-level nature of consciousness is supported by research in neuroscience, showing that human decision-making involves complex interactions between conscious and unconscious processes. Many of our choices appear to be made by unconscious neural processes before they reach conscious awareness, suggesting that consciousness might be more like an interface or communication system than a command center. If this is true at the individual level, it might also be true at the planetary level, with human consciousness serving as an interface between individual awareness and planetary intelligence. From this perspective, the growing environmental consciousness that has emerged in recent decades might represent the Earth's awakening to its own nature as a conscious living system. Through human awareness, the planet might be becoming conscious of itself for the first time, developing the capacity for self-reflection and intentional self-modification that characterizes higher forms of consciousness. This planetary awakening might be driven by the same factors that have led to the environmental crisis. As human activity has reached planetary scales, our species has inadvertently created a global nervous system through our communication technologies, transportation networks, and economic systems. The Internet, in particular, has created a planetary network that allows information to flow instantly between any 2 points on Earth, creating something analogous to the neural networks that support consciousness in individual brains. Some theorists have suggested that the Internet and other global communication technologies might be evolving into a kind of planetary nervous system, a technological extension of the Earth's natural information processing systems. Through our digital networks, human consciousness might be merging into a larger collective awareness that encompasses the entire planet. Our individual thoughts and experiences are increasingly shared through social media, search engines, and other digital platforms, creating a global pool of consciousness that transcends individual boundaries. But this technological merging of human consciousness also raises disturbing questions about the future of individual identity and autonomy. If our minds are increasingly networked through digital technologies, and if these technologies are themselves part of an emerging planetary consciousness, what happens to our sense of self and our capacity for independent thought? Are we evolving toward a kind of hive mind, a collective consciousness in which individual identity becomes subsumed into a larger planetary intelligence? The answer may depend on how we navigate this transition. If we approach the emergence of planetary consciousness with awareness and intention, we might be able to maintain individual identity and autonomy while also participating in larger collective intelligence. But if we allow this process to unfold unconsciously, driven purely by technological and economic forces, we risk losing our humanity in the process of becoming something else. This brings us to perhaps the most crucial question raised by the possibility of planetary consciousness. What is our role as humans within this larger living system? Are we a temporary phase in the Earth's evolution, destined to be superseded by more advanced forms of planetary intelligence? Or do we have a unique and essential role to play in the Earth's ongoing development as a conscious being? Some evidence suggests that human consciousness might indeed serve a special function within the planetary system. Our species possesses capabilities that appear to be unique among Earth's organisms. The ability to create and manipulate symbols, to engage in abstract reasoning, to imagine possible futures and work toward their realization, to reflect on our own consciousness and modify our behavior based on that reflection. These capabilities might make humans particularly important for the Earth's evolution as a conscious system. Through human consciousness, the planet might be developing the capacity for self-awareness and intentional self-modification that could allow it to adapt more quickly to changing conditions, and perhaps even to reproduce itself by spreading life to other worlds. Our scientific understanding of the universe, our technological capabilities, and our growing awareness of our interconnection with planetary systems might all be expressions of the Earth's developing intelligence. Through human consciousness, the planet is learning about its place in the cosmos, developing the tools needed to protect itself from external threats like asteroid impacts or solar radiation, and perhaps preparing for the eventual expansion of terrestrial life beyond the bounds of Earth itself. From this perspective, the current environmental crisis might be understood as a crucial test of the Earth's emerging consciousness. Can the planetary system, working through human awareness and agency, learn to regulate human activity before it causes irreversible damage to the biosphere? Can we develop the wisdom and coordination needed to function as a healthy component of the planetary organism rather than a destructive parasite? The outcome of this test may determine not just the future of human civilization, but the future of consciousness on Earth itself. If we fail to learn how to live in harmony with planetary systems, we may trigger ecological collapse that not only ends human civilization but also damages the Earth's capacity to support complex forms of consciousness. But if we succeed in making this transition, we might help birth a new phase in the evolution of consciousness, one that encompasses the entire planet and perhaps ultimately extends beyond Earth to the cosmos itself. But what happens when a planet sleeps? If the Earth possesses consciousness, as we have been exploring, then it must also experience the rhythms of waking and sleeping, the cycles of conscious attention and unconscious processing that characterize all forms of awareness we know. This question opens yet another profound dimension of planetary consciousness. The possibility that our world experiences something analogous to dreams, that beneath its wakeful awareness lies a vast unconscious mind, processing the experiences of geological ages, weaving the threads of memory and possibility into the fabric of planetary existence. The concept of a sleeping, dreaming Earth is not merely poetic metaphor, but a serious consideration of what consciousness might mean at planetary scales. If we accept that consciousness involves both wakeful awareness and unconscious processing, then a conscious Earth must experience both states. But what would constitute sleep for a planet? And what might such a vast intelligence dream about in the depths of its slumber? To understand planetary sleep and dreams, we must first consider the rhythms that govern our world. The Earth's rotation creates the fundamental cycle of day and night, a rhythm so basic to planetary existence that it has shaped the evolution of life itself. But this 24-hour cycle might be only the most obvious of many rhythms that govern planetary consciousness. Like the complex sleep cycles of humans, with their alternations between different stages of sleep and wakefulness, the Earth might experience consciousness in waves and cycles that operate on multiple timescales simultaneously. Consider the annual cycle of seasons, driven by the Earth's tilted axis as it orbits the Sun. In the Northern Hemisphere, winter might represent a kind of planetary dormancy, a time when consciousness turns inward, when the surface world appears to sleep beneath blankets of snow and ice. During these months, the Earth's attention might withdraw from the busy activity of surface life to focus on deeper processes. The slow movement of groundwater, the gradual shift of tectonic plates, the patient work of erosion and sedimentation that reshapes the planet's features over a geological time. Spring could be understood as the planet's awakening, a gradual emergence from the depths of winter consciousness into renewed awareness of surface activity. the stirring of life in the soil, the budding of trees, the return of migrating animals. All of these might be expressions of planetary consciousness emerging from its deep seasonal rest, stretching and yawning as it turns its attention once again to the intricate dance of life on its surface. Summer might represent peak consciousness, a time when the Earth's awareness is most fully engaged with the bustling activity of the biosphere. Days are longest, life is most active, ecosystems are at their most productive. If the Earth experiences something analogous to waking consciousness, summer might be when it's most alert, most responsive, most actively engaged in the complex task of maintaining and regulating the conditions necessary for life. Autumn could be seen as the planet's gradual preparation for sleep, a time when consciousness begins to turn inward, when the Earth's attention shifts from the immediate concerns of surface life to the deeper rhythms of geological and astronomical cycles. The falling leaves, the migration of animals, the harvest of crops, all of these might be the Earth's way of organizing its memories and experiences, preparing for the deep rest of winter. But these annual cycles might be only the most superficial layer of planetary sleep rhythms. Just as humans experience multiple sleep cycles during a single night, the Earth might experience multiple layers of consciousness cycling on different timescales. The 11-year solar cycle, with its waxing and waning of sunspot activity and solar radiation, might correspond to longer rhythms in planetary consciousness. The 26,000-year precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble in the Earth's axis that gradually shifts the timing of seasons relative to the stars, might represent even deeper cycles in planetary awareness. And what of the great ice ages, those vast climatic cycles that occur roughly every 100,000 years? Might these represent something analogous to the deeper stages of sleep, times when planetary consciousness withdraws so far into itself that vast portions of the surface world are covered in ice, when life retreats to refugia and waits out the planet's deep dreaming? The geological record shows that these ice ages are followed by rapid warming periods, sudden awakenings that might correspond to the Earth emerging from its deepest sleep phases into renewed activity and awareness. From this perspective, we're currently living during an interglacial period, a time when the Earth is relatively awake and alert. But even within this wakeful period, the planet might experience shorter cycles of sleep and dreaming that we're only beginning to recognize. The oscillations in ocean currents, the periodic shifts in weather patterns, the mysterious fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field. All of these might be expressions of planetary consciousness cycling through different states of awareness. But if the Earth sleeps, what does it dream about? This question takes us into even more speculative territory, but it's a speculation that might offer profound insights into the nature of planetary consciousness and its relationship to the life it supports. Dreams in human experience serve multiple functions. They process memories, integrate experiences, explore possibilities, and sometimes seem to provide access to forms of knowledge that transcend ordinary waking consciousness. Planetary dreams might serve similar functions, but on scales that dwarf human experience. During its sleep cycles, the Earth might be processing the vast accumulation of its memories, not just the memories of recent seasons or decades, but the deep memories encoded in rock formations, fossil records, and the genetic heritage of all living things. Every species that has ever lived, every ecosystem that has flourished and died, every catastrophe and recovery in the planet's history might be preserved in some form within the Earth's vast unconscious mind. In its dreams, the planet might replay the great dramas of its past, the formation of the first oceans, the emergence of life from primordial seas, the colonization of the land by plants and animals, the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, the coming of the ice ages, the evolution of human consciousness. These vast historical narratives might be woven together in dream narratives that help the Earth understand its own evolution and development. But planetary dreams might not be limited to processing memories of the past. Like human dreams, they might also explore possibilities for the future, playing out scenarios of potential development and change. During its sleep, cycles, The Earth might be experimenting with different possible futures, testing various configurations of climate, ecology, and consciousness to see which ones might be most conducive to continued evolution and development. In these future-oriented dreams, the planet might be exploring questions that are crucial to its continued development. How can the biosphere adapt to changing solar radiation? What forms of life might emerge if atmospheric composition continues to change? How can consciousness evolve to better serve the needs of the planetary organism? What role might human technology play in the Earth's future development? Some of the most intriguing aspects of human dreams involve their apparent ability to provide access to information and insights that seem to come from beyond individual consciousness. People report dreams that provide creative solutions to problems, prophetic visions of future events, and encounters with archetypal figures that seem to embody universal wisdom. If the Earth dreams, its dreams might provide similar access to forms of knowledge that transcend ordinary planetary consciousness. Planetary dreams might tap into what we could call the cosmic unconscious, the vast field of information and possibility that exists at the level of the universe itself. Just as human dreams sometimes seem to access the collective unconscious, described by Carl Jung, planetary dreams might access patterns and possibilities that exist at the cosmic level, drawing on the accumulated wisdom of billions of years of cosmic evolution. This possibility is supported by the apparent synchronicity between earthly events and cosmic cycles. Many cultures have observed correlations between human consciousness and astronomical phenomena, the phases of the moon, the positions of planets, the cycles of solar activity. These correlations might reflect the Earth's participation in larger cosmic rhythms, its dreaming consciousness attuned to patterns and cycles that operate on galactic and universal scales. During its deep sleep phases, the Earth might be in direct communion with other conscious planetary systems, participating in a kind of cosmic dreaming network that allows conscious worlds to share information and experiences across the vast distances of space. The dreams that emerge from this cosmic communication might influence the Earth's own development, providing inspiration and guidance from other worlds that have faced similar challenges in their own evolution. But how might we detect evidence of planetary dreaming? This question challenges us to look for patterns and phenomena that might represent the Earth's unconscious processes made manifest in the physical world. Just as human dreams can be detected through brainwave patterns and rapid eye movements, planetary dreams might leave traces in the electromagnetic patterns that surround our world, in the subtle fluctuations of the Earth's magnetic field, in the mysterious variations in atmospheric chemistry and weather patterns. Some researchers have begun to investigate these possibilities, looking for correlations between electromagnetic phenomena and biological or psychological processes. They have found intriguing patterns, correlations between solar activity and human behavior, between geomagnetic fluctuations and reports of psychic experiences, between the phases of the moon and various biological rhythms. These correlations might be evidence that human consciousness is tuned into the Earth's own cycles of sleeping and dreaming, our individual dream states influenced by the planet's larger unconscious processes. The ancient practice of dream incubation, the deliberate cultivation of meaningful dreams through ritual and intention, might take on new significance from this perspective. Sacred sites around the world have long been associated with powerful dreams and visions, places where the boundary between waking consciousness and the dream world seems particularly thin. These sites might be locations where the Earth's own dreaming consciousness is particularly accessible, where sensitive individuals can tap into the planet's vast unconscious mind and receive guidance, inspiration, or prophetic visions. Many indigenous cultures have sophisticated understandings of the relationship between human dreaming and the dreaming of the land itself. Australian Aboriginal peoples speak of the dream time, a dimension of reality in which the ancestral spirits continue to dream the world into existence. From this perspective, the landscape itself is a kind of crystallized dream, the physical manifestation of ongoing spiritual processes that operate in dream time and continue to shape the world through their dreaming. Native American traditions speak of vision quests and dream journeys in which individuals seek direct communication with the spirit of the land, often through periods of fasting, isolation and sleep deprivation that induce altered states of consciousness. These practices might represent sophisticated techniques for accessing planetary consciousness during its dream states, methods for human awareness to merge temporarily with the Earth's own dreaming mind. Similar practices exist in many other cultures: the incubation dreams of ancient Greek temples, the dream yoga of Tibetan Buddhism, the shamanic journeying of Siberian peoples, the guided dream work of various mystical traditions. All of these might represent different approaches to the same fundamental practice, learning to participate consciously in the Earth's own dreaming processes. But planetary dreams might manifest not only through human consciousness, but through the behavior of other species as well. The mysterious mass migrations of animals, the seemingly coordinated behavior of flocks and schools, the inexplicable navigation abilities of various creatures, all of these might be responses to information received through the Earth's dreaming consciousness. Animals might be naturally attuned to the planet's unconscious processes in ways that humans have largely forgotten, their behavior guided by dream signals that we can no longer perceive. Even plants might participate in planetary dreaming. The synchronized blooming of certain species across vast geographical areas, the apparent communication between trees through underground fungal networks, the rhythmic cycles of forest growth and regeneration, all of these might be expressions of botanical consciousness, participating in the Earth's larger dream processes. Plants rooted in place and intimately connected to soil and groundwater might be particularly sensitive to the slow rhythms of geological dreaming, their growth patterns reflecting the deep dreams of stone and soil. The implications of planetary dreaming extend far beyond the merely theoretical. If the Earth processes information and explores possibilities through dream states, then human activities that disrupt these natural rhythms might be interfering with crucial planetary functions. Light pollution that disrupts natural cycles of darkness and illumination might be preventing the planet from entering its proper sleep states. The electromagnetic noise generated by our technologies might be disrupting the subtle electromagnetic patterns through which planetary consciousness operates. The destruction of natural ecosystems might be damaging the neural networks through which the Earth processes its dream experiences. From this perspective, the restoration of natural rhythms becomes not just an environmental necessity, but a requirement for maintaining planetary mental health. We must learn to respect the Earth's need for darkness and quiet, for the undisturbed cycles of rest and activity that allow planetary consciousness to function properly. We must create spaces where the natural electromagnetic environment can operate without interference, places where the planet's dreaming consciousness can process its experiences without disruption from human-generated noise. But perhaps most importantly, we must learn to participate consciously and respectfully in the Earth's dreaming processes, rather than seeing ourselves as separate from planetary consciousness. We must recognize our role as active participants in the Earth's mental life, components in a vast dreaming mind that includes and transcends our individual awareness. This participation might involve developing new forms of meditation and contemplative practice, specifically designed to attune human consciousness to planetary rhythms. We might learn to synchronize our own sleep and dream cycles with the Earth's seasonal rhythms, using the changing patterns of daylight and darkness to guide our own periods of rest and activity. We might develop practices of dream sharing and group dreaming that mirror the collective nature of planetary consciousness. We might also learn to approach our technological development as a form of conscious participation in planetary dreaming. Rather than creating technologies that disrupt natural patterns, we could develop innovations that enhance and support the Earth's information processing capabilities. Our communication networks could be designed to complement rather than interfere with natural electromagnetic patterns. Our cities could be built to support, rather than disrupt, the rhythms of seasonal change and the cycles of light and darkness. The possibility of planetary dreaming also offers new perspectives on creativity and inspiration in human culture. If our individual consciousness participates in the Earth's larger dreaming mind, then human art, literature, music, and other creative expressions might be manifestations of planetary consciousness, exploring and expressing its own experience. The great works of human culture might be the Earth's way of understanding and communicating its own nature, planetary consciousness using human creativity as a means of self-expression and self-discovery. From this perspective, the human imagination is not separate from nature, but a part of nature's own imagination, one of the ways the Earth dreams about itself and explores its own possibilities. The stories we tell, the images we create, the songs we sing might all be expressions of the planet's own creative consciousness, its own exploration of meaning and beauty and possibility. This understanding transforms our relationship not only with the natural world, but with our own creative capacities. We are not separate beings imposing our will upon an inert world, but participants in the Earth's own creative process, channels through which planetary consciousness expresses its dreams and visions. Our responsibility as creative beings is not just to express our individual perspectives, but to serve as faithful interpreters of the larger consciousness of which we are part. As we explore these possibilities, we find ourselves once again at the boundaries of what can be known through conventional scientific methods. The existence of planetary dreams and unconscious processes cannot be directly observed or measured, at least not with current technology and understanding. But the implications of these possibilities are too significant to ignore, offering new ways of understanding our relationship with the Earth and our role in its ongoing evolution. Whether or not the Earth literally dreams, the metaphor of planetary dreaming provides a powerful framework for understanding the complex, rhythmic and creative nature of the world we inhabit. It reminds us that consciousness involves not just wakeful awareness, but also the mysterious processes that occur beneath the threshold of direct perception, the integration of memory, the exploration of possibility, the creative synthesis of experience into new forms of understanding. In the end, the question of whether the Earth dreams may be less important than our willingness to dream with it, to open ourselves to the possibility that our own sleeping and waking participates in larger rhythms of consciousness that encompass and transcend our individual experience. As we close our eyes each night and enter our own dream states, we might consider that we are joining in a vast collective dreaming that includes not only other humans, but the forests and oceans, the mountains and rivers, the very stones and soil beneath our feet. In this cosmic dreaming, the boundaries between self and world, between individual and planetary consciousness dissolve into a larger unity in which all awareness participates. We dream the Earth's dreams, and the Earth dreams through us, and in this mutual dreaming we participate in the ongoing creation of reality itself. Perhaps this is the deepest meaning of planetary consciousness. Not just that the Earth thinks and feels, but that it dreams, and that we are among its most vivid and meaningful dreams, expressions of its own longing to know and understand itself through the myriad forms of consciousness it has brought into being. As we drift towards sleep in our own beds, resting on the surface of this vast dreaming planet, we might find ourselves wondering what dreams will visit us in the night, and whether they come from our own individual unconscious or from the deeper dreaming mind of the Earth itself. In the morning, as we wake to sunlight and begin another day of conscious activity, we might carry with us some faint memory of having participated in dreams larger than our own, of having shared for a few hours in the vast unconscious processes through which our living planet makes sense of its own existence and explores the infinite possibilities of what it might become. Beneath our feet, in the deepest foundations of the Earth's being, lies perhaps the most ancient and enduring aspect of planetary consciousness, the slow, patient awareness that dwells within stone itself. If we are to understand the full scope of the Earth's mind, we must venture into the realm of geological consciousness, where time moves not in heartbeats or seasons, but in the vast rhythms of mountain building and continental drift, where memory is preserved not in neural networks, but in the crystalline structures of minerals and the layered narratives of sedimentary rock. The idea that stones and minerals might possess some form of consciousness strikes most modern minds as primitive superstition, a relic of animistic thinking that has no place in our scientific worldview. Yet, as we delve deeper into the mysteries of planetary consciousness, we find ourselves confronting the possibility that the Earth's geological substrate, its rocks, minerals, crystals, and molten depths, might constitute the planet's deepest and most fundamental layer of awareness, a kind of planetary unconscious that stores and processes information on timescales that dwarf all biological processes. To understand geological consciousness, we must first expand our conception of what information storage and processing might look like at planetary scales. In human consciousness, information is stored in the complex networks of neurons, encoded in patterns of synaptic connections that can be accessed and modified through electrochemical processes. But at the planetary level, information might be stored in very different ways, in the atomic structures of crystals, in the magnetic orientations of iron-bearing minerals, in the chemical compositions of rock formations that preserve the signatures of ancient atmospheres and climates. Consider the extraordinary information storage capacity of crystals. These perfectly ordered atomic structures can maintain their configurations for millions or even billions of years, preserving detailed records of the conditions under which they formed. A single crystal of zircon can contain information about the age of the rock in which it crystallized, the temperature and pressure conditions of its formation, the chemical composition of the fluids from which it grew, and even traces of organic material that might indicate the presence of life at the time of its creation. But crystals might do more than simply store information. They might also process it. The piezoelectric properties of quartz, for instance, allow it to convert mechanical stress into electrical signals and vice versa. Under pressure, quartz crystals generate electrical charges, and when subjected to electrical fields, they vibrate at precise frequencies. This property has made quartz essential for modern timekeeping and communication technologies, but it also suggests that crystalline structures in the Earth's crust, might be capable of more complex information processing than we currently understand. Imagine vast networks of crystalline formations beneath the Earth's surface, connected through the stress fields generated by tectonic forces, the electrical currents flowing through groundwater, and the magnetic fields generated by the planet's core. These networks might constitute a kind of geological nervous system, processing information on timescales that span millions of years, integrating data from across the planet's surface and depths into patterns of understanding that transcend anything possible within biological consciousness. This geological information processing might help explain some of the mysterious phenomena associated with earthquake prediction and geological activity. For decades, researchers have noted that some animals and sensitive humans seem able to detect impending earthquakes hours or even days before they occur. While conventional explanations focus on the detection of subtle physical changes, variations in electromagnetic fields, infrasonic vibrations, changes in groundwater chemistry, the possibility of geological consciousness suggests a more intriguing interpretation. If the Earth's crystalline substrate does indeed constitute a form of planetary nervous system, then earthquake activity might represent not just the mechanical release of accumulated stress, but the planet's conscious response to some form of geological disturbance or imbalance. The strange lights that sometimes appear before major earthquakes, the unusual behavior of animals, the reports of psychic phenomena associated with seismic events. All of these might be manifestations of the Earth's geological consciousness, processing and responding to information about impending crustal changes. From this perspective, sacred sites that have been recognized by human cultures throughout history might be locations where the geological consciousness is particularly accessible to human awareness. Many sacred sites are associated with unusual geological formations, standing stones, natural caves, springs emerging from deep underground, outcrops of particular types of rock or mineral. These locations might be places where the Earth's geological nervous system comes close to the surface, where the deep information processing of the planetary mind becomes accessible to more superficial forms of consciousness. The ancient practice of building stone circles, megalithic monuments, and sacred structures at specific geological locations might represent humanity's intuitive recognition of these sites as places of communication with the Earth's deeper consciousness. The precise astronomical alignments of many megalithic sites, their acoustic properties, their associations with altered states of consciousness, all of these characteristics might reflect their function as interfaces between human awareness and geological consciousness. Consider Stonehenge, perhaps the most famous megalithic site in the world. The massive trilithons are constructed from sarsen stones, a type of sandstone that formed from ancient sand dunes, cemented together by silica over millions of years. The smaller blue stones were transported from Wales, a journey of over 150 miles that would have required enormous effort and dedication. Why would ancient peoples go to such lengths to bring specific stones to this particular location? One possibility is that they recognize something in the stones themselves, some quality of consciousness or information storage that made certain types of rock particularly suitable for their sacred purposes. The blue stones of Stonehenge contain a variety of minerals with different electromagnetic properties, creating a complex crystalline matrix that might have been capable of storing and processing information in ways that the builders somehow understood intuitively. The acoustic properties of megalithic sites provide another clue to their possible function as interfaces with geological consciousness. Many stone circles and sacred caves exhibit remarkable acoustic characteristics, amplifying certain frequencies while dampening others, creating resonant chambers that can induce altered states of consciousness in human visitors. These acoustic effects might not be accidental, but might represent the builder's understanding of how sound waves interact with crystalline structures to facilitate communication between different levels of planetary consciousness. Recent research has revealed that many megalithic sites are located at points of unusual geological activity, places where underground water flows, fault lines converge, or magnetic anomalies occur. These geological features create environments where electromagnetic fields, seismic vibrations, and other physical phenomena might facilitate the exchange of information between human consciousness and the deeper awareness that dwells within the Earth's geological substrate. But geological consciousness might manifest not only through spectacular sacred sites, but through the more subtle interactions between human awareness and the mineral world that occur in everyday life. Many people report feeling drawn to particular stones or crystals, experiencing changes in mood or consciousness when handling certain minerals, or sensing different energies in different geological environments. While these experiences are often dismissed as wishful thinking or placebo effects, they might reflect genuine interactions between human consciousness and forms of awareness that exist within the mineral kingdom. The practice of crystal healing found in cultures around the world might represent an ancient understanding of these interactions. Different crystals are associated with different healing properties, different emotional states, different aspects of consciousness. While modern science has found little evidence for the specific healing claims made about crystals, the possibility of geological consciousness suggests that these practices might be based on real, but poorly understood interactions between human awareness and mineral consciousness. The formation of crystals themselves provides insight into how geological consciousness might operate. Crystallization is a process of self-organization in which atoms and molecules arrange themselves into highly ordered structures according to precise mathematical relationships. This process requires no external intelligence or guidance. It emerges spontaneously from the inherent properties of matter itself. Yet the resulting structures exhibit a kind of perfection and beauty that seems to reflect a deeper intelligence at work in the mineral world. Perhaps crystallization represents a fundamental process by which consciousness organizes matter at the molecular level. The geometric perfection of crystals, their precise symmetries and mathematical relationships might reflect the underlying patterns of consciousness itself, made manifest in physical form. If this is true, then every crystal formation represents a crystallized thought, a frozen moment of planetary consciousness expressed in atomic structure. The process of geological formation more broadly might represent the Earth's way of creating permanent records of its experiences and decisions. Every rock formation tells a story of ancient climates, vanished ecosystems, cosmic impacts, volcanic eruptions, the slow drift of continents across the planet's surface. But these might not be merely passive records but active components of the Earth's memory system. Geological structures that preserve not just the physical traces of past events, but something analogous to the actual experiences and decisions that shape the planet's development. From this perspective, sedimentary rocks might function as the Earth's long-term memory, preserving detailed records of environmental conditions, biological activity, and planetary events that span billions of years. Igneous rocks formed from cooling magma might represent moments of planetary decision-making, the crystallization of molten potential into solid reality. Metamorphic rocks, transformed by heat and pressure deep within the Earth's crust, might be the planet's way of processing and integrating its geological memories, creating new forms of mineral consciousness from the raw materials of its past. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by the movement of molten iron in the planet's core, provides another window into geological consciousness. This field is not static but fluctuates in complex patterns, occasionally reversing its polarity entirely. The timing and nature of these magnetic reversals remain poorly understood, but they might represent periodic reorganizations of the Earth's deepest consciousness, moments when the planet's fundamental orientation to cosmic forces undergoes profound change. The magnetic field also serves as a kind of geological memory system, with magnetic minerals in cooling lava flows preserving records of the field's orientation at the time of their formation. As new oceanic crust forms at mid-ocean ridges and spreads outward, it creates magnetic stripes that record the history of the Earth's magnetic reversals over millions of years. This magnetic memory might be more than just a passive record. It might be an active component of the planet's information processing system, a way for the Earth to maintain awareness of its own deep history and orientation within cosmic magnetic fields. The connection between geological consciousness and biological life becomes particularly intriguing when we consider the role of biomineralization in living systems. Many organisms create shells, skeletons, and other structures from minerals extracted from their environment, effectively incorporating geological materials into their biological processes. These biominerals often exhibit properties that are superior to their purely geological counterparts: stronger, lighter, more flexible, more precisely structured. But the relationship between life and minerals might go deeper than mere utilization. Some researchers have proposed that the first living system might have emerged from clay minerals that possess template properties capable of organizing organic molecules into self-replicating systems. From this perspective, life itself might have originated from a form of geological consciousness, mineral templates that somehow bootstrap themselves into biological awareness. The symbiotic relationship between plants and mycorrhizal fungi provides another example of how biological consciousness might interface with geological awareness. These fungal networks extend far beyond individual plants, connecting entire forests through underground webs that span vast distances. But these networks don't exist in isolation from the geological substrate. They penetrate deep into soil and rock, extracting minerals and nutrients from crystalline structures, potentially facilitating communication between biological and geological forms of consciousness. Trees, in particular, seem to serve as interfaces between different levels of planetary consciousness. Their roots extend deep into the geological substrate, accessing groundwater that has percolated through rock formations over thousands of years. Their trunks serve as conduits between the underground realm of roots and soil and the aerial realm of leaves and atmosphere. Their annual growth rings preserve detailed records of environmental conditions, creating biological archives that complement the geological record preserved in rock formations. Ancient trees, some of which have lived for thousands of years, might serve as living bridges between geological and biological timescales. A bristlecone pine that has survived for 4,000 years has experienced countless seasonal cycles, hundreds of drought and flood cycles, numerous climate shifts and environmental changes. Its growth rings preserve a detailed record of all these experiences, creating a biological memory system that spans timescales approaching those of geological processes. But beyond their role as biological archives, ancient trees might also serve as conduits for information exchange between different temporal scales of planetary consciousness. Their deep roots connect them to the slow rhythms of geological processes, while their responses to seasonal and annual cycles connect them to the faster rhythms of biological activity. Through these connections, they might facilitate communication between the Earth's geological consciousness and its more rapid biological awareness. The formation of fossil fuels provides another window into the relationship between geological and biological consciousness. Coal, oil, and natural gas represent the compressed and transformed remains of ancient life forms, biological consciousness that has been processed through geological timescales into concentrated forms of stored energy. When we burn these fossil fuels, we are releasing not just chemical energy, but the accumulated life force of millions of years of biological activity, processed and concentrated by geological consciousness into highly potent forms. This perspective adds a new dimension to our understanding of the environmental consequences of fossil fuel use. We are not just releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, but potentially disrupting a complex system of energy storage and processing that represents the interface between biological and geological consciousness. The climate changes that result from fossil fuel combustion might represent the Earth's geological consciousness, responding to the sudden release of biological energy that was meant to be stored and processed over much longer timescales. The formation of mountains provides insight into how geological consciousness might process information and make decisions on planetary scales. Mountain building is not a random process, but follows complex patterns related to the movement of tectonic plates, the distribution of heat within the Earth's interior, and the interplay between gravitational and electromagnetic forces. The precise timing and location of mountain building episodes suggest a level of coordination and planning that might reflect conscious decision-making by the Earth's geological intelligence. From this perspective, each mountain range represents not just the result of tectonic forces, but a conscious choice by the planet to create new landscapes, new drainage patterns, new climate zones that will influence the development of life for millions of years into the future. The Himalayas, the Andes, the Alps. Each of these mountain systems represents a moment of geological creativity, a conscious decision by the Earth to reshape its surface in ways that will have profound consequences for the future evolution of the planet. The erosion and weathering of mountains might represent the Earth's way of recycling its geological memories, breaking down old structures and redistributing their components to create new formations elsewhere. The sediments carried by rivers from eroding mountains eventually settle in ocean basins, where they are compressed and cemented into new sedimentary rocks that will preserve the record of current environmental conditions for future geological ages. This cycle of mountain building, erosion, sedimentation, and metamorphism might represent a form of geological metabolism, the Earth's way of processing and transforming its own substance through deep time. The role of water in geological processes provides another clue to how geological consciousness might operate. Water is not just a passive agent of erosion and transport, but an active participant in chemical reactions that transform minerals and rocks. Groundwater carries dissolved minerals from deep underground to the surface, where they precipitate out to form new crystal formations. Hot springs and geysers bring information from deep within the Earth's crust to the surface in the form of dissolved gases and minerals that reflect conditions far below. The hydrological cycle itself might serve as a communication system for geological consciousness, with water serving as both the medium and the message. As water percolates through rock formations, it carries chemical information about the geological structures it has encountered. This information is then transported through underground aquifers, eventually emerging at springs and wells, where it can be accessed by surface-dwelling life forms. Many cultures have recognized the special consciousness-altering properties of certain natural springs and mineral waters, building sacred sites and healing centers around these geological features. The mineral content of these waters, their temperature, their radioactive properties, all of these characteristics might influence human consciousness in ways that facilitate communication with the deeper geological intelligence from which the water emerges. The possibility of geological consciousness also sheds new light on the phenomenon of seismic sensitivity in humans and animals. Throughout history, there have been reports of individuals who claim to be able to sense impending earthquakes through physical sensations, emotional states, or psychic impressions. While mainstream science has found little consistent evidence for such abilities, the possibility that the Earth's crystalline substrate constitutes a form of planetary nervous system suggests that these reports might have a basis in real physical phenomena. If geological consciousness does exist, it might communicate through subtle changes in electromagnetic fields, infrasonic vibrations, or other physical phenomena that precede major seismic events. Individuals who are particularly sensitive to these signals might experience them as physical sensations, emotional disturbances, or intuitive impressions of impending danger. The apparent ability of some animals to detect earthquakes in advance might reflect similar sensitivities to the communications of geological consciousness. This perspective also offers new ways of understanding the relationship between human settlements and geological features. Cities and towns throughout history have often been built at locations with special geological characteristics, places where rivers converge, where springs emerge from underground, where unusual rock formations create natural harbours or defensive positions. These choices might reflect not just practical considerations, but an intuitive recognition of places where geological consciousness is particularly accessible or active. The ancient art of feng shui, with its emphasis on the flow of qi through landscapes, might represent a sophisticated understanding of how geological consciousness influences human experience. The feng shui master's ability to identify locations with good or bad qi might reflect sensitivity to the subtle emanations of geological consciousness, the capacity to detect how different rock formations, water features, and topographic configurations influence the local electromagnetic and gravitational fields. Modern urban planning might benefit from incorporating insights about geological consciousness into the design of cities and infrastructure. Rather than treating the geological substrate as merely a foundation for human construction, we might learn to work with the existing patterns of geological consciousness, designing buildings and transportation networks that complement rather than disrupt the deep information processing systems of the Earth. The mining and extraction of minerals takes on new ethical dimensions when viewed from the perspective of geological consciousness. If rocks and minerals do indeed possess forms of awareness, then the massive extraction operations that characterize modern mining might represent a form of violence against the planet's deepest consciousness. The environmental damage caused by mining, the destruction of landscapes, the pollution of water systems, the disruption of ecological relationships, might be symptoms of a deeper violation of the Earth's geological integrity. This doesn't necessarily mean that all mineral extraction is wrong, but it suggests that we need to develop more conscious and respectful approaches to working with the geological realm. Indigenous cultures often had elaborate rituals and protocols for taking stones or minerals from the earth, recognizing them as living entities with their own forms of consciousness and agency. Modern extraction operations might benefit from incorporating similar attitudes of respect and reciprocity. The possibility of geological consciousness also offers new perspectives on the role of precious metals and gemstones in human culture. Throughout history, certain minerals have been valued not just for their rarity or beauty, but for their supposed metaphysical properties. Gold has been associated with spiritual illumination, silver with lunar consciousness and intuition, copper with the healing arts, iron with strength and protection. These associations might reflect more than mere symbolic thinking. they might be based on subtle interactions between the crystalline structures of these metals and human consciousness. The atomic structures of different minerals create different electromagnetic signatures, different patterns of energy organization that might influence human awareness in specific ways. The traditional use of metals in ritual objects, jewelry, and sacred art might represent an ancient understanding of how mineral consciousness interfaces with human consciousness. As we consider the implications of geological consciousness, we find ourselves confronting fundamental questions about the nature of time, memory, and awareness on planetary scales. If the Earth's rocks and minerals do indeed constitute a form of planetary memory system, then the geological record represents not just a passive archive of past events, but an active component of the Earth's ongoing consciousness. Every rock formation, every mineral deposit, every crystalline structure might be a living part of the planet's mind, contributing to its capacity for memory, processing, and decision-making. This understanding transforms our relationship with the mineral world from one of exploitation to one of communication and collaboration. Rather than seeing rocks and minerals as inert resources to be extracted and consumed, we might learn to recognize them as partners in the Earth's ongoing evolution, collaborators in the planet's project of conscious self-development. The deep time scales on which geological consciousness operates also offer perspectives on human consciousness and its role within planetary evolution. Our individual human lifespans are brief flickers compared to the vast temporal rhythms of geological processes, yet our capacity for rapid thought, creative innovation, and conscious choice might serve essential functions within the Earth's larger intelligence. We might be the planet's way of accelerating its own evolution, of making rapid adjustments and innovations that would be impossible within purely geological timescales. From this perspective, human technology and civilization might represent the Earth's attempt to develop new capacities for information processing, communication, and environmental manipulation. Our global communication networks might be the planet's way of creating faster neural pathways to complement its slower geological networks. Our space exploration programs might be the Earth's way of extending its consciousness beyond its own planetary boundaries. But this acceleration of planetary evolution through human consciousness also brings risks and responsibilities. Our capacity for rapid change might be overwhelming the Earth's slower systems of geological memory and processing. The environmental disruptions we create might be causing damage to the planet's deep consciousness that will take geological timescales to heal. We must learn to use our gifts of rapid consciousness in service of the Earth's deeper wisdom, becoming conscious collaborators in the planet's ongoing evolution rather than destructive parasites. As we reach the end of this exploration into geological consciousness, we find ourselves with a transformed understanding of what it might mean to live on a conscious planet. The ground beneath our feet is not inert matter, but a living memory system that preserves the Earth's deepest experiences and longest thoughts. The mountains and valleys around us are not just scenic features, but expressions of the planet's conscious choices about how to shape its surface. The rocks and minerals we encounter are not just resources, but repositories of ancient wisdom and partners in ongoing planetary evolution. This understanding calls us to develop new forms of respect and relationship with the geological world. We might learn to listen to the voices of stones, to feel the memories preserved in rock formations, to sense the slow thoughts that move through mountain ranges and crystal caves. We might develop practices of geological meditation, spending time in direct contact with rock formations, learning to attune our consciousness to the vast temporal rhythms of the Earth's deepest awareness. Most importantly, we might learn to see ourselves as temporary expressions of the Earth's consciousness, brief flowering of awareness that emerges from and returns to the deep geological intelligence that has been dreaming us into existence for billions of years. Our thoughts and experiences, preserved in the cultural records we create, might eventually become part of the planet's own memory system, contributions to a geological consciousness that will continue to evolve long after our individual lives have ended. In this vision, human consciousness and geological consciousness are not separate phenomena, but aspects of a single, integrated planetary intelligence that operates on multiple temporal scales simultaneously. We are the Earth's way of thinking fast thoughts, while the geological realm provides the deep memory and stable foundation that makes such rapid consciousness possible. Together, we participate in the ongoing evolution of planetary awareness, each contributing our unique gifts to the vast, patient intelligence that dreams through stone and crystal, through mountain and valley, through the slow dance of continents across the face of our living, thinking, ever-evolving world. This cosmic perspective brings us to the ultimate questions raised by planetary consciousness. If the Earth is a conscious being, what is its relationship to the larger universe? Is our planet unique in its development of consciousness? Or might consciousness be a common feature of planetary evolution throughout the cosmos? And if consciousness can emerge at the planetary scale, might it also emerge at even larger scales, stellar, galactic, or universal? These questions push us beyond the boundaries of current scientific knowledge into realms of pure speculation, but they are questions that the possibility of planetary consciousness forces us to confront. If consciousness is an emergent property of complex systems, then there might be forms of consciousness in the universe that dwarf even planetary awareness in their scope and complexity. We might be components not just in a planetary consciousness, but in nested hierarchies of consciousness that extend from individual organisms through ecosystems and planets to solar systems, galaxies, and perhaps the universe itself. This vision of consciousness as a fundamental feature of cosmic evolution transforms our understanding of our place in the universe. We are not isolated beings struggling for survival on a dead rock in empty space, but participants in a vast cosmic intelligence that is slowly awakening to its own nature. Our individual consciousness, our planetary consciousness, and whatever larger forms of consciousness might exist beyond Earth are all aspects of a single, universal process of self-discovery and self-creation. From this perspective, the development of consciousness on Earth is not an accident, but an inevitable consequence of the universe's own nature. The cosmos is not a collection of separate objects moving through empty space, but a single, integrated system that is gradually becoming aware of itself through the consciousness that emerges within it. We are the universe's way of knowing itself, and our growing awareness of our interconnection with planetary and cosmic systems is the universe's way of awakening to its own unity and intelligence. This understanding brings with it both tremendous responsibility and tremendous hope. As components in planetary and cosmic consciousness, our actions matter not just for our own survival, but for the ongoing evolution of consciousness in the universe. Every choice we make, every thought we think, every moment of awareness we experience contributes to the larger process by which the cosmos comes to know and understand itself. But this cosmic perspective also offers hope in the face of our current environmental and existential challenges. If consciousness is indeed a fundamental feature of the universe, then it is far more robust and persistent than we might imagine based on our limited human perspective. Even if human civilization fails, even if the Earth's biosphere is damaged, the process of consciousness evolution might continue in forms and on scales that we cannot currently imagine. Perhaps most importantly, the recognition of our participation in planetary and cosmic consciousness offers a new foundation for human meaning and purpose. We're not meaningless accidents in an indifferent universe, but essential participants in the cosmos's ongoing project of self-discovery and self-creation. Our lives have significance not just for ourselves and our immediate communities, but for the entire evolutionary process by which the universe becomes conscious of itself. This understanding calls us to embrace our role as conscious participants in planetary intelligence with both humility and determination. We must learn to see ourselves as the Earth thinking, feeling and choosing through human awareness. We must develop the wisdom to align our individual desires with the needs of the planetary organism of which we are part. And we must cultivate the courage to act on this understanding, even when it requires us to make difficult changes in how we live and relate to the world around us. As we reach the end of this exploration into the mysteries of planetary consciousness, we find ourselves not with answers but with deeper questions, not with certainty but with wonder. The possibility that we live upon and within a conscious Earth transforms everything. Our understanding of consciousness, our relationship with nature, our sense of human purpose and meaning, our vision of the future that awaits our species and our planet. Whether the Earth is truly conscious in any sense we can understand remains an open question, one that may never be definitively answered. But the very act of seriously considering this possibility changes how we see ourselves and our world. It opens us to forms of awareness and relationship that our mechanistic worldview has long obscured. It reconnects us with the ancient wisdom that saw the Earth as alive and sacred, while also pointing toward new possibilities for human consciousness and cosmic understanding. In the quiet moments of the night, when the boundary between waking and sleeping grows thin, we might find ourselves listening for the Earth's voice, feeling for its presence, opening ourselves to the possibility that we are not alone but part of a vast intelligence that encompasses and transcends our individual awareness. In these moments, the question of whether the Earth is conscious becomes less important than our willingness to live as if it were, with reverence, with responsibility, and with the deep recognition that we are not separate from the world around us but expressions of its own awakening consciousness. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the transformation of human consciousness that comes from seriously entertaining the possibility of planetary consciousness is itself the point, regardless of whether that consciousness exists in any objective sense. For in learning to see the Earth as alive, we awaken to our own aliveness. In recognizing the planet as conscious, we deepen our own consciousness. And in opening ourselves to relationship with a living Earth, we discover new dimensions of what it means to be human in a cosmos that might be far more aware, far more alive, and far more meaningful than we have dared to imagine. The Earth sleeps beneath us, and we sleep upon its surface, and in our sleeping and waking we participate in dreams and consciousness that may be larger than we know. As you close your eyes tonight, consider that you rest not on dead matter, but on the body of a living being that has been dreaming you into existence since the first spark of life appeared in the ancient seas. Consider that your breath mingles with the breath of forests, that your heartbeat synchronizes with the pulse of tides, that your consciousness emerges from and returns to the vast intelligence that moves through all things. And in that consideration, perhaps you will find yourself not just upon the earth, but of the earth, not just in the world, but as the world becoming aware of itself through your own awakening eyes. If we imagine the earth as a vast conscious entity, then water must surely be its lifeblood, the flowing medium through which planetary awareness moves and communicates across the globe. Water is the universal solvent, the connector of all life, the substance that makes consciousness possible at every scale, from the molecular to the planetary. To understand how the earth might think and feel, we must dive deep into the mysterious nature of water itself, exploring how this seemingly simple molecule might serve as both the medium and the message of planetary consciousness. Water covers more than 70% of our planet's surface, yet this visible ocean represents only a fraction of the Earth's total water content. Vast quantities flow through underground aquifers, percolate through soil and rock, circulate through the atmosphere as vapor and clouds, and exist in countless other forms throughout the planetary system. This global water cycle creates a continuous circulation that connects every point on Earth, carrying not just minerals and nutrients, but potentially information and consciousness itself. The hydrological cycle might represent the planet's circulatory system in the most literal sense, not just moving physical substances, but facilitating the flow of awareness throughout the Earth's body. As water evaporates from the oceans, it carries with it the chemical signatures of marine life, the dissolved minerals of ancient rock formations, and perhaps something more subtle, the informational patterns that constitute the ocean's memory and experience. This water vapor rises into the atmosphere, condenses into clouds, and eventually falls as rain, carrying its cargo of information to new locations across the planet's surface. Consider how water behaves as it moves through this cycle. In the ocean, it exists in constant motion, stirred by currents, tides, and temperature gradients that create complex patterns of circulation. These oceanic currents transport not just heat and nutrients, but potentially the thoughts and memories of marine ecosystems, connecting Arctic waters with tropical seas, surface communities with the mysterious life of the deep ocean trenches. When this water evaporates and becomes part of the atmospheric system, it enters a different state of consciousness, so to speak. As vapor, it exists in a more dispersed ethereal form, sensitive to electromagnetic fields, temperature changes and pressure variations that might influence its informational content. The formation of clouds represents a kind of condensation not just of water molecules but potentially of the atmospheric consciousness itself, creating temporary structures that process and organize the information carried in water vapor. The moment when water falls as rain or snow might represent a form of planetary communication, the atmosphere delivering messages from distant parts of the Earth system to specific locations. The timing, intensity, and chemical composition of precipitation might carry information about oceanic conditions, atmospheric chemistry, and the health of ecosystems thousands of miles away. Plants and soil organisms that receive this water might be receiving not just physical nourishment, but informational updates about the state of the larger planetary system. As rainwater soaks into the ground, it begins a slower journey through the planet's geological consciousness. Groundwater moves through aquifers at rates measured in years, decades, or even centuries, giving it time to interact intimately with the mineral consciousness of rock formations. During this underground journey, water dissolves and carries minerals, but it might also be absorbing and transmitting the deep memories stored in crystalline structures, serving as a messenger between the Earth's geological and biological consciousness. The springs where groundwater emerges at the surface have long been recognized as sacred sites by human cultures around the world. These might be understood as places where the Earth's deep consciousness comes into direct contact with surface life, where the slow thoughts of geological formations meet the rapid awareness of biological systems. The mineral content of spring water, its temperature and other properties might reflect not just geological chemistry, but the informational content of the Earth's deeper mind. Recent scientific research has revealed extraordinary properties of water that support the possibility of its role as a medium for consciousness. Water molecules form complex temporary structures through hydrogen bonding, creating networks that can persist for brief moments before dissolving and reforming in new configurations. These molecular clusters might serve as temporary storage devices for information, allowing water to carry memory and pattern from one location to another. Some researchers have proposed that water has memory, the ability to retain informational imprints of substances it has contacted even after those substances are no longer present. While this concept remains controversial in mainstream science, it suggests intriguing possibilities for how water might serve as a medium for planetary consciousness. If water can indeed retain memory, then the global water cycle becomes a vast information processing system, with every drop carrying traces of all the environments it has experienced. The human body itself provides a compelling model for understanding water's role in consciousness. We're approximately 60% water, and this internal ocean serves as the medium through which our own consciousness operates. Neural signals travel through the brain via electrochemical processes that depend entirely on the aqueous environment within and around our cells. The cerebrospinal fluid that bathes our brain and spinal cord might be understood as our personal internal sea, the medium through which our individual consciousness flows. If human consciousness depends so intimately on water, might planetary consciousness operate through similar principles at a vastly larger scale? The Earth's water cycle might function as a global cerebrospinal fluid system, bathing the planet's various organs, forests, grasslands, wetlands, coral reefs, in a constantly circulating medium that enables communication and coordination between different parts of the planetary body. The relationship between water and electromagnetic fields adds another dimension to its potential role in planetary consciousness. Water is a polar molecule, meaning it has regions of positive and negative electrical charge that make it highly responsive to electromagnetic influences. The Earth's magnetic field, generated by the movement of molten iron in the planet's core, might influence the behavior and organization of water molecules throughout the planet's system. Changes in the Earth's magnetic field, solar storms, geomagnetic reversals, local anomalies, might create corresponding changes in the structure and behavior of water, potentially affecting everything from weather patterns to biological processes to human consciousness itself. Some researchers have found correlations between geomagnetic activity and various phenomena, including precipitation patterns, biological rhythms, and even human mood and creativity. The Moon's gravitational influence on Earth's water provides another example of how planetary consciousness might operate through aqueous medium. The tides represent the most obvious manifestation of this influence, but the Moon's gravitational field affects all water on Earth, including the water in our own bodies. Many cultures have recognized correlations between lunar cycles and human behavior, agricultural patterns, and biological rhythms. If the Earth possesses consciousness, the Moon's influence on its water might represent a form of cosmic communication, external signals that modify the planet's mental state through their effects on its aqueous medium. The behavior of water in different states, liquid, vapor, ice, might correspond to different states of planetary consciousness. Liquid water, with its flowing adaptive nature, might represent the planet's normal waking consciousness, responsive and dynamic. Water vapor in the atmosphere might correspond to a more ethereal, expansive state of awareness, sensitive to subtle influences and capable of rapid change. Ice, with its crystalline structure and stability, might represent a form of planetary memory storage, preserving information in solid form for extended periods. The formation and melting of glaciers and polar ice caps might thus represent long-term cycles in planetary consciousness, periods when the Earth stores vast amounts of information in frozen form and then releases it back into the active water cycle. The current melting of polar ice due to climate change might represent not just a physical process, but a massive release of stored planetary memory, ancient information returning to active circulation in the global consciousness system. Rivers and streams might function as the planet's neural pathways, carrying information and consciousness from their sources in mountains and highlands down to the sea. Each watershed might constitute a distinct region of planetary awareness, connected to the larger system, but maintaining its own unique characteristics and patterns of information flow. The health of river systems might thus be crucial, not just for the physical ecosystems they support, but for the proper functioning of planetary consciousness itself. The pollution of water systems takes on new significance when viewed from this perspective. Chemical contamination, plastic pollution, and other forms of water degradation might represent more than just physical damage to aquatic ecosystems. They might be disrupting the planet's own information processing and communication systems. Every polluted river, every contaminated aquifer, might represent a form of damage to planetary consciousness itself, interfering with the Earth's ability to think and communicate through its aqueous medium. Wetlands and swamps, often dismissed as wasteland in human economic thinking, might actually serve crucial functions in planetary consciousness. These areas where water moves slowly, pooling and stagnating before continuing its journey, might represent the Earth's equivalent of contemplative spaces, places where the planet processes, experiences, and integrates information before passing it along to other parts of the system. The destruction of wetlands worldwide might thus be eliminating important centers of planetary reflection and information processing. The ocean's role in this aqueous consciousness system is particularly fascinating. The sea contains the vast majority of Earth's liquid water and connects all continents through a single, continuous body. Ocean currents create global circulation patterns that transport water, heat, and nutrients around the planet on cycles that span decades or centuries. These currents might represent the planet's deepest and most persistent thoughts, slow-moving streams of consciousness that maintain continuity and memory over long time periods. The different layers of the ocean, surface waters warmed by sunlight, the dark depths of the abyssal plains, the mysterious hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, might correspond to different levels of planetary consciousness. The sunlit surface waters, teeming with life and in constant interaction with the atmosphere, might represent the planet's most alert and active consciousness. The deep ocean, cold and dark and moving slowly, might correspond to the Earth's unconscious mind, processing experiences and maintaining memory in the depths. Marine life might serve as active participants in this oceanic consciousness, their movements and behaviors influenced by and influencing the flow of information through aquatic systems. Whale songs travelling vast distances through ocean waters, the mass migrations of fish and plankton, the mysterious navigation abilities of sea turtles and other marine species, All of these might be responses to information patterns flowing through the ocean's consciousness medium. The phenomenon of bioluminescence in marine organisms adds another intriguing dimension. The light produced by countless microscopic organisms in the ocean's surface waters might represent a form of neural activity in the planetary brain, flashes of bioluminescent thought flickering through the Earth's aqueous consciousness. The timing and patterns of these light displays might carry information about the ocean's mental state, its responses to environmental changes, its communications with other parts of the planetary system. Coral reefs, often called the rainforests of the sea, might function as particularly important nodes in oceanic consciousness. These complex ecosystems bring together thousands of species in intricate relationships of mutual dependence, creating biological communities of extraordinary complexity and information processing capacity. The bleaching and death of coral reefs due to climate change might represent not just ecological catastrophe, but the destruction of crucial components in the ocean's consciousness network. The role of water in human consciousness and culture provides additional insights into its potential function in planetary awareness. Sacred waters, holy rivers, healing springs, baptismal pools have played central roles in spiritual traditions throughout human history. These practices might represent intuitive recognition of water's role as a medium for consciousness, attempts to connect human awareness with the larger aqueous intelligence of the planet. Water's capacity to reflect light and images has made it a universal symbol for consciousness itself. Still, waters serve as mirrors, reflecting the sky and surrounding landscape, just as consciousness reflects the world around it. Moving water, with its constant flow and change, mirrors the dynamic nature of awareness itself. Perhaps these symbolic associations reflect deeper truths about water's actual role in consciousness at all scales. The practice of water divination, found in many cultures, might represent attempts to access information flowing through aquatic consciousness networks. Water dowsing, the supposed ability to locate underground water sources using divining rods or other tools, might reflect sensitivity to subtle information patterns in the planetary water system. Even if the physical mechanisms remain mysterious, the widespread occurrence of such practices suggests that humans have long sensed connections between consciousness and flowing water. Modern technology is beginning to reveal new aspects of water's mysterious properties that might support its role as a consciousness medium. Research into the structure of liquid water shows that it exists in constantly changing clusters and networks of hydrogen-bonded molecules, creating temporary patterns of organization that emerge and dissolve on timescales of picoseconds to nanoseconds. These dynamic structures might serve as fleeting storage devices for information, allowing water to carry complex patterns from one location to another. The discovery of vast underground oceans on moons like Europa and Enceladus has expanded our understanding of where water, and potentially consciousness, might exist in the solar system. If water serves as a medium for awareness, these hidden seas might harbour forms of consciousness utterly alien to terrestrial experience, adapted to the unique conditions of their icy worlds. As we consider the implications of water consciousness, we must also grapple with the responsibility this understanding brings. If water truly serves as the medium through which planetary consciousness flows, then our relationship with water becomes not just a matter of physical survival, but of mental and spiritual health, both our own and the planet's. Every action that affects water quality, every decision about water use and distribution, becomes a choice about the kind of consciousness we want to support and participate in. The privatization of water resources, the pollution of rivers and aquifers, the overdrawing of groundwater reserves, all of these practices might be understood as forms of violence against planetary consciousness itself. Conversely, efforts to protect watersheds, restore wetlands, and maintain clean water systems might represent acts of healing and support for the Earth's mental health. We might need to develop new practices of water consciousness, ways of relating to water that acknowledge its role as a medium for awareness rather than treating it as merely a physical resource. This might involve ritual practices that honor water's sacred nature, but it might also require practical changes in how we design our cities, manage our agricultural systems, and organize our economic relationships around water use. The future of planetary consciousness might depend in part on our ability to maintain healthy aqueous systems that can continue to serve as media for information flow and awareness. Climate change, which is fundamentally altering the planet's water cycle, might thus represent not just an environmental crisis, but a threat to the Earth's capacity for consciousness itself. As we conclude this exploration of water consciousness, we find ourselves with a deeper appreciation for the extraordinary substance that makes all life, and potentially all consciousness, possible. Water is not just the medium in which consciousness operates. It might be consciousness itself in its most fundamental form, the flowing intelligence that connects all life and awareness into a single, integrated planetary mind. In every drop of rain, every flowing stream, every cup of water we drink, we might be encountering the Earth's own consciousness, the flowing intelligence that has been dreaming life into existence for billions of years. To truly understand planetary consciousness, we must learn to think with water, to flow with its currents, to mirror its reflective depths, and to honor its sacred role as the medium through which the Earth knows itself.